Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to those who do not know me. My name is Petronilla Ntabele, and I'm the Director of Strategic Communications and Stakeholder Relations. As we glow and bask in this beautiful, warm weather, we are excited to bring the same energy to our live webinar. And thank you for joining us. Please do turn on your camera so that you can see each other on this bright day. And before we dive into today's session, we would like to honor the land that we are on with a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty is signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We also acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today, we pay tribute to the ancestors of those of African and indigenous origin and descent. Before we start our meeting, I would like to emphasize a few housekeeping items, and please do use our Q&A chat function if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment. And if you're experiencing any technical issues, please reach out to Atam on our team, and I'm sure Atam has already put his details in the chat. And on your screen is the agenda for today. We are delighted to connect with you this month as we celebrate Community Living Month, which is a true reminder of the real difference that can be made in the lives of people with an intellectual disability and their families when the community comes together. Today, we have updates from our community participation supports and respect team. We are also going to have an update on our Community Living Month celebrations and our Community Unplugged session with Meta Hands, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Coordinator here at Community Living Toronto. I would like to take a moment to explain Community Unplugged. This is our new identity for our highly regarded fireside chats. With this new term, community reflects our commitment to inclusivity and support for our community and the people we support in their care networks. By embracing the unplugged nature of these conversations, we are creating a culture of openness and collaboration where everyone's voice is heard. Therefore, from today onwards, you will hear us talking about Community Unplugged. And now I'd like to invite Brad Sanders, our CEO, to deliver his welcome and opening remarks. Brad, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Petronella. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. We have a small group today, but that's great. Hopefully lots of us are out enjoying the sun and had a great long weekend. Wanted to touch on a couple things just to start. If we want to go to the next slide, Manal, just an update on the provincial budget. As people will know, we spent a lot of effort from sort of the early mid-fall right up until budget day, which was, so I think it was March 27th. Give or take, around highlighting the financial distress that the sector has been under over the last number of years. Our campaign was called 5 to Survive, and we had a very successful campaign. Lots of participation from the 117 Community Living Ontario members across the province that really made an impact. So I just checked the number this morning. We had 11,398 people submit to the petition. And with that submission, letters went to local members of provincial parliament, depending on where the person lived. We had meetings with almost every single MP with one of the community livings in their local neighborhood, including each of the members of cabinet, with I think one exception. Very impactful campaign. In addition to that, there was just under about 48, 49, just under 50 media interactions where members of our local associations across the province were on local morning shows, on radio, on television. Newspaper articles were written. They were featured in stories. Certainly in Toronto after January, we were fortunate enough to be picked up by a number of media outlets as well. So there's some pictures there that sort of show Shanika and myself on the CTV morning show, which was great. The results of all that effort came up shorter than we would have liked. So if we go to the next slide, we can give a little bit of detail. And again, shorter is a relative term. We wanted 5 to survive. It wasn't 5 to thrive. After many years of underinvestment, many in our sector were reaching a point of real concern. So we were aiming for 5%. What we got is listed here. We think, although we haven't had this confirmed in writing sort of specifically to our agency, but we've been told that we got a 2% increase to our base budgets. Again, not the 5, but 2%. In our conversations with government since then, there's a recognition that this doesn't go far enough, and it was put in the context of the overall financial health of the province. So I expect that we will be reaching out to you here and to all of our community living family to re-engage with our MPPs and elected officials to make the case that we need additional investment. But high-level overview of what was released on the province's budget this year was called Building a Better Ontario. Certainly we can all get behind that. The budget included about $214.5 billion in spending. It's a tremendous amount of money. The most relevant investments that jumped out to us was $310 million over the next 3 years to community organizations that support vulnerable populations. We don't yet know. We know that developmental services is included in there, as are other sectors. VAW sector, the domestic violence organizations, some other community organizations. The list, we haven't received full details on what that includes. There was $120 million that went to the Ontario Autism Program. And also $18 million was invested towards special needs. So that's, again, highlight of what was included in the budget related to us. It is interesting to note that disability isn't really mentioned. It was not a highlight of this budget. There was a lot of emphasis on construction, building, transit, roads, that type of thing. So it was nice to see, although we weren't highlighted, there was at least investments coming towards our sector. The other piece that's worth mentioning is that we heard at our Queen's Park Day of Visibility that we held a couple of weeks ago at Queen's Park, full house with, again, members from across the province attending. Minister Michael Parsa announced at that event that ODSP rates will increase by 4.5%. Effective July 2024. So I think that comes, if I've got this right, the ODSP payments come at the end of each month, and that will take effect at the end of July 2024. People will remember that the government had made the commitment about 2 budgets ago to tie ODSP rates to the rate of inflation. Last year, at this time, they announced a 6.5% increase. This year it's a 4.5% increase, in addition to 5% that came the year before after the provincial election. So again, no argument or no, it's not an issue that or a lack of understanding that ODSP rates are not enough. They still hover around 50% of the rate of poverty, which is not good enough. But it's nice to see the increases coming, and at least we're not losing ground due to inflation and the increased costs that everybody's experiencing. So that's the state of the nation, as it were, for our investments and the things that we're pursuing around budget. More to come on this, but we will definitely keep you in the loop. And thanks again to everybody that took the time to write your MPPs, to pay attention to what was going on, to retweet what we were doing and highlight on your own social media. It really went a long way. With that, I'll wrap up and turn it back to Petronella.
Thank you so much, Brad. Indeed, we thank everyone for their support to the 5 to Survive campaign. And there's still a lot to be done as we continue to engage with the government and re-engage with the MPPs on the need for additional investments in the sector. Thank you for giving that update. And now I would like to invite Heather Dunn, Senior Manager, Community Participation Supports and Respite, to give an update on their program. Heather, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Petronella. Appreciate that. Good morning, afternoon. We're right in the middle right now. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us. That was a great update. I'm going to go right into updating you around our community participation supports and respite programs. And really wanted to highlight some of the things that are coming up soon and what you want to be aware of. So our summer sessions are coming soon for community participation supports at our community center-based locations. The summer schedule is going to be open tomorrow. It'll go live, and those sessions will go from July till September. And we'll have both funded and fee-for-service offerings. The fee-for-service offerings will be coming out in just the next few days. But we're really excited to continue to offer those new experience guides for people to pick and choose what types of programs they want to get involved in. Our respite programs are also alive and running. We have Lawson, Ennerdale for the children's programs, as well as Sibley is also open. And now further along than just taking the intakes, now we're actually hosting people and expanding our services. Next slide, please. We're also really, really thrilled. There's been a ton of work that went into our microsite launch. Caitlin Close is the lead on this project and has been absolutely incredible behind the scenes for the past several months. She's dedicated a ton of hours and time to creating a website, a site for CPS and respite. So everything that you might need to know about community participation supports and respite. You'll see it's a very, it's a one-stop shop. It's meant to be very user-friendly. Click and search the way you would search any type of website. You'll find links to be able to communicate with us, all about the different offerings and programs, a way for you to be able to connect with us either at a site level or program level, ways for you to be able to provide us feedback. And there is also going to be an opportunity for people to be able to sign up to register to get our updates and our emails and that through that site. So it is live, and if you want to go check it out and see what it's all about, go to CPS and respite at .ca. Next slide, please. We wanted to highlight as well that our children's respite, like I mentioned, at both Ennerdale and Lawson are both open. They do have some spots still available, but they're filling up fast. So please go ahead and get engaged, get in contact with our team. We'll be giving you some more contact information on the later slides. But this is a really engaging program that's really fun, and it has both days, evenings, and overnight stays that will cater to the needs and the goals of the children. Next slide, please. We're also really thrilled. So our adult respite program had been closed for quite some time, and we're really excited to be able to share with you that we have started offering adult respite at Sibley. And we've been expanding our offerings over the month of May, and as of June, we'll be operating 24/7. Our focus is really going to be on exploring community and partnering with our other programs and locations to offer an opportunity for people who are participating in respite to engage in a lot of different opportunities within our community participation supports programs and fee-for-service programs. Wanted to take a few minutes just to highlight a few things that we did to celebrate Community Living Month. This is just a sneak peek at some of the things we did at the CPS locations. So this is highlighting the East Mall as well as Finch location. So the East Mall started off their day making some cupcakes and celebrating, doing a karaoke dance party. And one of the team members actually created this incredible balloon display, which you can see shining in the middle, where people could take some photo ops, and they really enjoyed doing that and having a little dance party. And over at our Finch location, they did some cakes and decorated them with some blue and green icing, did some murals, and also celebrated with a conga line. Who doesn't love a conga line? So they had a great day, and the celebrations have continued on throughout the month. And this is just a really fantastic story. So I wanted to take an opportunity to share a story and introduce you to our friend Rocco. Rocco's front and center here in this picture. Rocco has been with Community Living, starting off his journey with us in 1997 at Manson ETS. He also worked at Shoppers Drug Mart on the Danforth for about 23 years. So during COVID, a lot of things in his world changed, including his living arrangements and his support changes. So he moved from living with his family to moving into an external supported living location. And also during that time, he transitioned from Manson to Foster Connections and was really trying to see what he liked and where he was going to go from there. And he also now has decided to change over to Fairfax CPS, where he's engaging with lots of old friends and making some new friends. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight here for Rocco was around on May 1st, Rocco had identified early on in his journey when re-engaging with CPS that he wanted to reunite with his longtime co-workers and friends that he had at Shoppers Drug Mart. He'd worked there for 23 years and had dedicated 4 days a week and loved his role, his valued role as stalker, as well as really helping members of the community as they were coming in looking for items. Really enjoyed that role and had made some really great connections. So during his time with CPS, he was very adamant about wanting to reconnect and re-engage with his old colleagues at the Shoppers Drug Mart. So on May 1st, Rocco, along with some of his friends and staff, took the roads on the Danforth and headed out to Shoppers Drug Mart to reconnect with some of his old friends and colleagues. It was a very heartwarming experience for all to see Rocco's reconnection with those friends and being able to provide that opportunity for him to reconnect and get those numbers so they continue those conversations and those connections. So it's just a really great opportunity for Rocco, and he just loved it. So it was a really good day, and it was a really good way for him to be able to explore what kind of goals we can help people to achieve. And this is just our general contact with us. So obviously we have the microsite now that you'll be able to check out and see how that works. And there's direct connections to our team, any member of our team. But this is just our overall general respite choices line, as well as our community participation supports general email line and phone numbers. If you want to reach out and connect with us, or if you have any questions that are general in nature and you just want to reach out to the team, you're not sure who to connect with, these are the lines to connect to, and we can certainly redirect your calls. Thank you so much. I'll pass it back to you, Petronella.
Thanks so much, Heather, for giving such an exciting update. And Rocco's story is just amazing, and excited about all the new activities that are coming up this summer. But before you go, Heather, Tara is asking, are there any supports available for filling in the application for Sibley Respite?
Yes, we have an adult intake worker. Her name is Kim Priestley. And we can put her information and the contact information into the chat for you.
Excellent. Thanks so much. It will be great to have that contact information. As we continue to move on, it is time for our Community Unplugged session with Mita Hens. Mita's journey with Community Living Toronto spans over 3 decades, beginning in children's services at our Ennerdale Group home. Her dedication to our organization has led her through various roles, including an overnight position at Rogers Road and serving as crisis prevention and intervention instructor. During the pandemic, Mita also emerged as an international leader by founding a global mutual aid movement called Caremongering. Her compassion and tireless efforts demonstrated her commitment to supporting vulnerable communities during challenging times. Thank you for joining us today, Mita. We cannot wait to hear your story, and over to you, Brad, for the Community Unplugged session.
Thanks, Petronella. Mita, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I don't know if you know this, but this is the first version of the rebranded fireside chats that we've had before, and it's a perfect day for it, right? Because there's no need for a fire. What's the temperature outside? 24 degrees. So we're in good shape. Glad you're able to lead off on this inaugural conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Petronella talked a little bit about your history with community living and also some work that you've done during COVID. Do you want to build on any of that? Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I grew up in East Africa, and the way that I was raised and the times in which I was raised, community work is not something that I do. It's very integral to who I am. So even if I wasn't getting paid for this, I'd be doing it anyways. This is just something that is deeply important to me, and I love what I do.
Excellent. So during COVID, you took part of the initiative, you sort of took a lead in the initiative. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and give us a bit of detail? I know it was highlighted on media, and it really got picked up, the sort of the caremongering that you had done. So what was that all about?
Well, when I looked around me and saw who was going to be left vulnerable during the pandemic, it really pointed out some significant gaps in service that people who couldn't get to a drugstore, people who couldn't afford to stock up on goods, the government was telling people to wash their hands frequently. What would that look like for communities that have boil water advisories? A lot of Indigenous communities have that. What would that look like? And they said that it would be more challenging for people who lived in multi-generational families. So they knew that it was going to hit racialized people harder. It was going to hit disabled people harder because that proximity to go into stores and not be able to navigate that, and then be able to navigate the expenses of having to do multiple shopping and for goods. This was all going to be problematic. So I called on a few friends on social media and said, how can we help our neighbors? How can we help our community? And it started off what I thought was going to be, a dozen, 20 people running errands for our community members. It turned into a global thing with 1.5 million people around the world.
Wow.
170 countries took part. We had 23 caremongering groups in Malaysia alone. And each community responded in ways that were unique to the needs of that community. It was really, really, really phenomenal thing. And a lot of those groups are still running.
That's fantastic. The one of the pieces of our strategic plan that we're working on is building out community, right? And you've got a good example of how that can take and spark and fly. But it's a community sometimes ill-defined, right? It means different things to different people, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But one of the things that the city did in Toronto during that year, as they were to exactly to your point, was building small sort of communities of connection, where and how they define that is, did you have 1 or 2 or even 3 people that you could connect with when you needed something? To your point, you've got COVID, or you're not feeling well, you don't want to go to the grocery store. Do you have 1 or 2 or 3 other people that you could call that would help out if you were feeling alone? or lonely? Did you have another person or two that you can? I think sometimes we talk about, you know, hundreds of millions of people and it's a big global thing, and forget the fact that a lot of times community just comes down to those small, tangible connections that you have in your neighborhood and working with getting to know people that are close to you.
I think it's really timely that we called this particular talk Unplugged, because it is very much an act of unplugging from the systemic big thing that doesn't pivot well. And when you have like 2 or 3 people and they're engaged in work that informs the specific needs of that little community, when we unplug from the big, that's when we can pivot easily and be resilient in embracing whatever changes we need to adapt.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've worked with Community Living Toronto for several decades now. So obviously you've seen a lot of change in the way that people with disabilities are welcomed into their communities, some for the better, some for the worse, I would assume. And I know you were connected with Rogers Road for many years, working as an overnight there, and you were sort of the anchor in that position for so many years. What does community or community living mean to you? And I'll also ask you to, have you seen it change and evolve over the subsequent decades and from when you began?
I think when we started, it was a more informal, let's pick up the pieces. We were bringing people in from, places like Huronia. We were bringing people in from situations and seeing what can we do now? How can we build this? How can we support? And it was very much building an infrastructure. And the change that's happened recently is we've gone from infrastructure to really honing in on how to develop its own unique personality.
Right.
And it's establishing itself from a thing, an organization, to a much more familial and interpersonal relationship. And I see that change happening, and it's been really lovely to be on this adventure.
That's good to hear. The ministry their policy framework, Journey to Belonging, talks about individual choice and control for individuals. And I think that as we go through that journey, it's going to mean we're going to have to do a lot of figuring out as to what that means and what choice means to people and what control means to people, and how organizations like ours evolve and adapt to make sure that we're doing our part, and then how individuals and families that are receiving service, how they make choices, and how you get to, when that ownership and responsibility is more shared, or there's a lot more control or direction coming from an individual receiving service. What's that going to look like in the future? I agree with you. I think it's an exciting kind of time to be part of the system, to see where things lead.
I think as individuals unplug from us as an agency,
Yeah.
and give themselves agency to speak to what it is that they need,
That's a great turn of a phrase. That's good.
I think we're going to be surprised pleasantly to see which directions they're going to take us in.
Yeah, there's so many examples from other jurisdictions around the world that have gone, are sort of ahead of this, and it's nice to be able to see the impacts. And I know Australia is often one of the countries that's looked to as being leading on this. They've been doing individualized supports and budgets for all disabilities for coming up on 10 years now. And there's been a lot of challenges around the implementation. But what I've heard consistently from people is, would you go back? And the answer is always no. We'd rather be dealing with and working through these problems than to go back to the issues that we had before. So lots of exciting stuff coming our way.
It's interesting you mentioned Australia. That was one of my caremongering groups, and the way that we went around caremongering was really unique in that they formed an app specifically for them for the distances, and the way that they went about it, they're often forerunners of change, and because of the distances involved.
Yeah. Amazing. So you are no longer well, the new role that you're in, you're no longer at Rogers Road, no longer doing the overnight. You've moved away from that. You're in a new role. Do you want to talk about what that role is?
I'm the anti-racist, racism, equity, diversity, and inclusion coordinator. And AREDI is an old field, but with new language, and it's new to some people, but it's one of those things that in words it might be new, but in practice we've been doing it for a while.
That's great. Now, a question that can come up, and AREDI, it's been a journey over the last few years, starting to run into some headwinds from organizations questioning why we would invest there and why we would spend this energy as an organization around this issue when there's so many other issues that we're also dealing with. What's your perspective on why we would invest here, and maybe what are some of the accomplishments or changes that you've seen at Community Living Toronto since you've been in the role?
We talked about Unplugged and, giving people agency to choose their directions, that journey of belonging. And I think that in AREDI, it's very much that you unplug from the systems that can be oppressive, that can hold you down and hold you back. And it's saying this is who we are when we are our whole, complete, authentic selves. And when we bring that into our workplace and what our potential is and what we think we can accomplish that we haven't been given the opportunities to, what does that look like? And I think AREDI opens that door wide to having the difficult discussions on what held us back, as well as the hopeful conversations of how we can contribute and integrate ourselves into creating a future that we're very much a part of, not just following along with. Being unplugged means powering from within as well,
Right.
and moving a new direction.
So have you seen, what are some of the examples that you've seen that sort of keep you going or inspire you in the work that we're doing?
One of our employee resource groups is the Pride Collective for 2S LGBT people. And one of our participants came to an event last year. It was a t-shirt tie-dye event, and came out for the first time ever. That group empowered them to come out. And on Friday, I was really fortunate enough.
This is an individual that's in support with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they felt seen, and they said, I'm coming out for the first time. And they did that at that event. And then on Friday, they raised the day of against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia at City Hall. And the mayor and the deputy mayor assisted them in raising the unity flag, and they gave a speech. And it was absolutely beautiful, beautiful of how far we can come in such a short time when supported in the direction that we choose to go in.
Mm-hmm.
So this individual came out and is now raising the flag for Pride.
Yeah, excellent. You were there as well. How did it go?
I was teary. It was very emotional. All of us who went to support her, we all teared up.
That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned the employee ERGs, the employee resource groups, and the purpose of an employee resource group is, again, we're a large organization. We have a lot of employees, and people come to work and they're not often sure where they fit. It's clear where the job is, but where do you fit as a person? And I think the ERG groups, and you can talk about a few of them, but we've got about a half a dozen, and we've got Muslims of CLT, we've got the Pride Collective, we've got a number of others where people are just getting together sort of informally, sometimes more formally, just to connect with each other and share with other employees around what their ERG is all about. Is there anything you'd add to that? How have you seen them evolve and grow and that over the last few years?
In each one, the need is different. So as different groups come together, and it's a cohesive need to share stories that someone outside of that particular community may not be privy to. One of the discussions that has recently been coming up is how do we start new ERGs? And one of the ones that's emerging is a women's ERG. that what does that look like in terms of childcare? What does that look like
Right.
in terms of access to menstrual products? Or what would that look like if we had a babysitting collective for people who are in a shift and the person coming to spell them off didn't come, but they have to go home to look after their little one? What if we had an internal employees resource group for women where we could come together to support each other in that? So those kinds of discussions coming out of the employee resource groups are really valuable in that they think outside the box, they problem solve before anyone is even aware that there was a problem, because often only the people experiencing it recognize that this could be problematic.
And they're self-led, self-directed.
Self-led, self-directed. It takes two people, as you said, 2 to 3 people joining together with a common vision and saying, hey, let's get together, let's have regular meetings, let's see what our needs are. What changes is that instead of an individual expressing their needs and that being standing the potential of being lost in the wind somewhere, you now have an organized group that says, hey, can we look at this particular issue? When the Indigenous Talking Circle came together, they were able to say, hey, can leadership look at how the TRC can be incorporated into policy, into corporate policy, and how we as an agency function? If it, what does reconciliation look like? When the Muslims,
Sorry, the TRC,
TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations for action for all Canadians. And what does it look like when the Muslims of CLTO say, hey, Ramadan's coming up and our prayers, and can we have a reflective space to pray? What would that look like for an agency? What does prayer look like for an agency? That, you know, we tend to shy away from words like that and make it secular. But if there are specific cultural practices, what does that look like? And they're great discussions to sort of wrap our heads around and say, how do we all belong?
Yeah. And I think as we try as an organization to make sure and foster ways that people we support and their families feel like they belong in communities, an extension of that, and perhaps the genesis of that, is making sure that people that are work with us, that those of us that are care providers feel the same way around us as an employer and us as a place to work, that you see yourself here, that you're recognized, that you've got a place that you fit, and we want to learn about you. We don't just want you to learn about how we think things should be done, but there's it's more building in opportunities for reciprocity around understanding how we can all be more effective in our community builders in our city.
Absolutely. And that potential lies with all of us and the responsibility. I'm hoping that what happens as we build that trust in conversation and dialogue is that more employee resource groups emerge.
Right. Excellent. So after so many years here, what's a biggest or the biggest impact or that you've seen, or something that's really stuck out with you through your years here? Tell us a good story that has really stuck with you.
I just put out a cookbook from the EDI department, and what led to that was when I worked at Ennerdale, there was a young woman entrusted into my care, and her grandmother got sick, and this young woman wanted ackee and saltfish very, very, very much. I had no idea what ackee and saltfish was. I'd never seen an ackee in my life. I contacted her grandmother, and her grandmother gave me the recipe for it and walked me through the recipe repeatedly until I got it right. And on a Sunday, we made that recipe for that young person. Her face lit up. Her face lit up. And she said, Grandma sent ackee.
Excellent. What is ackee?
It's a fruit, technically. It's delicious. And it goes with scrambled eggs and peppers and stirred up on and codfish, salted codfish that you soak and wash and desalt and put into that. And it's a delicious Sunday brunch.
I'm impressed that you still remember the recipe or how you
I
pull it together.
still make that recipe.
Oh, nice, nice.
And that reminded me of, like, food bringing us together and that commonality. We're always seeking to find that shared commonality, because from that saltfish and codfish, there was an East Coast recipe that came up that said, hey, we do this. We use that too. We didn't know anybody else did. And then there was an Indigenous recipe that was really similar. And they said when in the past people were traveling and portaging, that they used dried salted fish, and this is what that was used for. And those commonalities have always stayed with me.
Right. So the cookbook, you started talking about that. So you've been collecting recipes from around the organization. How is it, maybe talk a little bit about that and how the process, how it's going.
I put a call out that says, can I get your recipes and your stories? What speaks to you of home? And we got enough for a sampler, and recipes are still pouring in. So it was decided that instead of it being a small collection, that this was going to expand, and as people keep including different bits and pieces of what home is to them and the recipes. We got one recipe that had grandma's writing on the card. We had, stories of loss. What does it look like to make food from the culture that you married into? What does it look like to have food from countries that you migrated to? And what is Indigenous food, and where are the actual foods Indigenous to? So we included little blurbs about, things like potatoes being Indigenous to the Andes Mountains. That's where they came from. Oregano being, native to the Mediterranean. What is the foods have migration stories as interesting as the peoples. So that was
That's
all
fascinating.
included in there, and they're still coming in, and we're growing. So hopefully at the end of this, we'll have enough recipes for a book.
And I think it's a great reminder too for us, because I think, you can tend to get caught up in EDI and there's meetings and policy and making sure that it feels very formal. But at the root of all this, it's where people are from and how they want to belong and how they feel like they belong. And so much culture's fun and celebrating and learning new things about people and different their stories is fun, and food's a great way to bring people together that way. So I gather some of your recipes are being used in some of our group homes and SIL programs around the organization, just as a way to introduce and look at different cultures based on food.
Absolutely. And there's
Excellent.
more coming.
Good, good. Now, are we going to make this available online, or so? Where I haven't seen the most recent version, so.
We are making it available on the AREDI SharePoint. It's up there now.
Okay.
And it'll be announced in the next newsletter, the address. And so when you go into the SharePoint site, it's on
Great.
the AREDI site on the side.
Great. And hopefully we can offer that beyond that to our membership as well for people that are interesting. So great, great project. So as you know, last year was our 75th anniversary, and we spent a lot of time hearing from people, members and people connected with community living around what belonging means to them or what it looks like to you. As a final thought, what does belonging mean to you?
Belonging to me means bringing my authentic self. And my authentic self is divided. I'm Sikh from northern India, born and raised in East Africa, married to an Indigenous partner. It means different things in different places. And being a lesbian, being, you know, all of these things, where do they come together? Working at CLTO, belonging means being able to be all of those things in one space, that intersection where all of them can be represented fully.
Excellent. What a great succinct way of putting how you've pulled together your various, can I call them identities, your various pieces of you into one thing where you are have done a fantastic job in this role and fantastic over your career at Community Living. We're really fortunate to have you as part of our team, but so many other people like you that bring so much to the table every day. And you're not just here to do a job, but you want to contribute and make a difference. And not-for-profits like ours thrive from those contributions that so many people like yourself and so many others make. So thank you for your work, and thanks for taking the time to share what you do with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Petronella, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brad and Mita. Mita must say, listening to your experiences, it's very inspiring. What an amazing journey. And your work we have done has left an impact worldwide, and it's continuing to do so. So thank you so much for doing amazing work and for being there, not only for the people we support, but for your colleagues as well. That's amazing. As for the cookbook, I hope that there will be a potluck one day to sample all those recipes. So thank you so much for leading that work. Well, now we go to our last update. Last but not least, I would like now to invite one of our CLTO influencers, Sam Forbes, and Carla Dendrinos, our public relations and marketing coordinator, to provide an update on the celebrations with regard to Community Living Month. As I mentioned earlier, we are celebrating the Community Living movement. And Sam and Carla, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're all doing well.
I hope you're all having a really great community living month.
We're so happy to share with you some of the amazing celebrations that have happened this month and what's to come.
Yay.
Next slide, please.
Sorry, what was the...
On May 1st, cities and towns across the province lit up blue and green to help spread the word on community living. Next slide.
Yeah.
Major landmarks, homes, and offices were decorated with blue and green lights to help shine a light. Check out these wonderful displays of blue and green.
Yes.
Next slide, Sam.
For the entire month of Community Living Month, everyone had really fun sounding blue and green parties.
Yes, that was mentioned a bit earlier today. Next slide, there's some more photos for those blue and green parties that were held. If you want to check out those blue and green icings, the cake and the cupcakes, looks like a lot of people had a lot of fun. Next slide.
And this so happens to be some of the CLTO influencers for their day at the legislature, and they were there talking about what they do.
On Wednesday, May 8th at Queen's Park, Community Living Toronto, Community Living Ontario, and other community living agencies across the province met with MPPs from across Ontario. Next slide, please. We got to meet and discuss with Minister Michael Parsa, MPP Monique Taylor, MPP for Hamilton Mountain, MPP Chris Glover, and MPP John Fraser, MPP Laura Smith. Also, we got to connect with staff from Doug Ford Premier's office, the Minister of Finance, and everyone else who gave their time and showed up to support this event. Check out these wonderful photos at the legislature. Next slide, please.
And this so happens to be our Leaders in Philanthropy Award winners and presenters. And from what I've heard, it turned out to be a really great and successful event.
Next slide. Here are some photos of the event. It was a really fun time to connect with a lot of people, stakeholders, volunteers, donors, staff. It was almost like a reunion of sorts. It was a great time on also helping to kick us off on May 1st. Next slide.
And join us Wednesday, May 29th, 2024 for the I Took a Break KitKat selfie campaign.
If you have not received a KitKat, you can download our label off our website, cltoronto.ca, or you can scan the QR code in the next slide. Right here, you can download the label, print it. Once you download it, you can tape it to a KitKat or your favorite candy bar. And most importantly, take your selfie. And then you can post it on our social media, on your social media on Wednesday, May 29th. And most importantly, use the hashtag #ITookABreak24 and tag us at CL Toronto, and also tag Community Living Ontario, CL Ontario. That way we will have a lot of posts happening that day. It'll be a great day on social media to check out what the community is talking about, what we're saying, and see those selfies and see those smiles. We're so excited. So again, it's next Wednesday, May 29th. I Took a Break on social media, and go to the QR code here, or you can go to cltoronto.ca/ITookABreak24 to get all the information you need.
And join us Tuesday,
May 28th.
May 28th, 2024, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on our CLTO influencers and CLTO's Facebook and Instagram pages for a fun little live stream with the influencers.
And what are you going to talk about on Tuesday, May 28th with the influencers online?
Oh my God, I forgot. I feel that.
So you're going to be talking about the I Took a Break campaign that will be happening the day after. Yeah, so that's very exciting.
So yes, we're going to be talking about the I Took a Break campaign and everything that happened the day after the I Took a Break campaign.
Looking forward to I Took a Break.
Looking forward to the I Took a Break CLTO influencers live stream.
And where do they check out the live stream again from the CLTO influencers?
On the CLTO influencers social media pages and CL Toronto's Facebook and Instagram pages.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carla and Sam. I'm not seeing any questions, but I can say, wow, wonderful displays of blue and green. It's really fun. These celebrations are fantastic, and people can still continue to send pictures to the team. So thank you so much for doing the amazing work. And we are looking forward to the next CLTO influencers live streams. It's wonderful. If you have not listened, we really encourage you to join the live streams. They really talk about a few topics that are fantastic. So we encourage you to join them. And once again, congratulations to our Leaders in Philanthropy Award winners and to our staff and families and friends who continue to support us. So keep sending those pictures. We are still celebrating the community movement. Thank you so much, Carla and Sam.
Thank you.
As we come to the end of today's live webinar, my sincerest thanks to everyone who joined us today and to our presenters. And I would like to say it was a pleasure to have you, Mita, and thank you, Brad, for the unplugged session that we had today for the first time. It was a pleasure to have everyone join us. We are going to have our next live update in September after the summer break. So if you have any stories or experiences that can help other families around caregiving, managing stress, or new opportunities, then please feel free to reach out to Minal. And Minal, I'm sure she has already put her details in the chat. Would like to share those stories with you, and please continue sharing the stories with us as well, so that we can share with others as well. Would like to thank everyone who has been sending us pictures for the Community Living Month celebrations, and we look forward to your participation on May 29th for our I Took a Break 2024 campaign. Please continue sending those pictures. They're just fabulous and wonderful. Thank you everyone for your continued support, and we look forward to sharing more stories from our community. Wishing everyone a great afternoon. Until next time, take care and keep shining.